So here we are in Marbella, and I'm with Heidi Gubbins. Now, what a surprise I had when I first came to this part of the world, and I discovered that we have a great-grandfather we share. Isn't that amazing? Where did that come from? And the Gubbins family went out to South America, but Heidi didn't get too far. She stopped in Peru and her family stopped there. We went down to Chile. But anyway, that's a story which anecdotally is quite amazing. But Heidi is a very well-known interior designer decorator here in Marbella. And as such, with what I do, which is real estate, I think it was a great idea to sit down with her and see exactly maybe what she does, how she's done it, how she's created this thing. And we are in her studio, in her office here, shop, what do you call it, studio, at the bottom and underneath where it all happens in Marbella along the Golden Mile. So Heidi, great to see you.
Nice to see you, Charlie.
Yeah, well, it's been a while, I know, and but here we are formally doing this little chat. So let's go through some of the things that you do, okay, which is this interior design. And let's begin with your creative process and planning. What is the creative process and planning you have when you get a client who comes to come and ask you to do some work for them?
I think every project is different because clients are different. Mm-hmm. And we've got processes in place in our studio for us to function properly and effectively. But the process itself, when it comes to the creative process, I think varies many times, because sometimes you're inspired by the client's personality, or by something the client said they liked, or sometimes you're thinking about the client or the home or the architecture or what it is that you're going to do, and then you see something and that inspires you. I go on walks in nature, so that's inspirational to me. So in terms of the process itself, I think it's very organic. I like to keep it that way because I feel it's the way that we can create uniquely for each client and for each project that we take on.
And once you've done all of that, do you actually present it back to them on a storyboard, or how do you actually present the project to them?
Most of our clients live abroad, so a lot of times it's presentations over Zoom.
Right.
We like to have all the materials here. I'm very particular with materials, textures.
Right.
And so we ourselves put it together, and then we will put it on a mood board presentation. We also then do SketchUp drawings, sketches, 3D renderings as well that help visualize the project. So if it's a client that is here, then the client will come and we'll show the mood boards and then all of the materials. If it's a client that lives abroad, we go on Zoom or on one of these platforms and we go through it.
Okay. And the materials that you select, do you sometimes bring sustainability into the equation? Is that something that's important to some clients maybe? Yeah. Most clients maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
I think slow design is nice. And I think a lot of times when you're working on exclusive projects with like an exclusive design, it's what I mean by exclusive, it's for the client,
particular to them.
For them. They will have different briefs. So depending on what their brief is, we go and we do it different ways. I like to work with artisans a lot, so local manufacturers. So I think that's also really nice, and it keeps the
eco-friendly
that part growing, which I feel is more authentic as well. And then depending on what they want to use in terms of materials, then we will choose and select them.
So this is a growing thing, the eco-friendly sustainability materials, and people say, don't bring them from China, let's see if we can find something up in the mountains in the back here.
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
I like that.
Yeah. What are the current trends here in Marbella on interior design? I mean,
I'm the worst person to talk about trends.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, look, if I look about architecture, right, one of the things I've noticed is that Andalusian architecture had smaller windows, big walls,
Yeah.
because of the climate.
Yeah.
You wanted to stop the heat coming in, particularly maybe the cold coming in the winter. And people had walls to put paintings on. Now people have huge big windows
and
and
no
there's
art.
no art. So that's a trend. And
Yeah.
is that something that you see here, that you find it? People want it. I want a modern place, or I want a more traditional place. Is that?
A lot. I mean, I'm happy that now I feel people are more inclined to go for, at least maybe clients that I'm involved in, with more traditional or more, Andalusian style of architecture.
Okay.
I really like it. I feel that we need to protect that. But then, yes, you also have the modern architecture and with the big, huge windows. And I think what is important in those homes is that you bring in character in a different way.
Yeah.
So if the view is your focal point because of the big windows, and maybe bringing something on the inside that is more personalized to the client, so that it doesn't feel like a white box.
Yeah. Because timelessness is difficult to fix, because
Absolutely. Also with the big windows, it's like it's hot here,
Yeah.
I mean, because then you go to these houses, then it's how to gauge it a little bit and not go. In my opinion, one shouldn't go. That's why with trends, I'm a little bit.
Yeah.
I can get inspired by them, but I'm not like a
They
trend.
fade away.
Yeah.
And
so
they change
I think it's
so quickly.
important to also look back into why things are done, why they were done, and then maybe do a mix of the two. I like mixing. So.
Yeah. And where do you get mostly your inspiration for designs? Is there anywhere in Marbella particularly, or along the coast here, or even Latin America, because you're from there originally?
Yeah.
Do you have any of that?
I think since always I love texture, so anything that has a texture, and from a tree trunk to a rock, sand, the way it forms. I love that. I'm constantly inspired by that. And what's nice about living here is that, well, the weather's beautiful, so walks in nature is something I do all the time.
Yeah.
And there I think nature really inspires me.
Yeah.
But like I said, it could be, what someone's wearing. It could be a piece of jewelry. It could be anything, really. It just depends on what strikes in the moment. And then from there, I'm inspired.
And that has a link to the client, of course, as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
But sometimes I've noticed that there's ideas or things that I've seen that I've really loved. And there's like this joy when you look at something that's really inspirational. Like, ooh. And then somehow, and I don't notice when it happens until after I've designed something, maybe even years later. And I'm like, this color combination reminds me, and then I'm going through my image bank. I'm like, this, and it'll be something I was inspired by years before.
Right.
And somehow it finds its way. That's why I like to be like awake always. Like I'm taking pictures all the time and documenting things I love that I see. And then in the future, sometimes it finds its way into one of our designs.
Okay, cool. If you had a client come in today and they said, look, I want to do something, what's the sort of timeline you would say that is typical for a project? I mean, let's say a project, the house is already finished, not something that's being built. Not like a refurbishment or something. Something that you're going in and say, look, this is my house. I just want you to decorate it for me. Do you have a timeline in terms of what needs to be done and all that?
Depends on the size of the project.
Obviously.
So usually we take our time to design, and then we'll sit with the client, also get a briefing from them, what's most important to them. If I feel that the brief is a bit more complex, that will take longer. If it's more of a simple briefing, then not so long. But always once the design has been completed, we also then give the service of sourcing everything and installing everything and organizing who we work with.
Right.
In terms of carpentry, joinery, stones, rocks, anything that has to be installed, including furniture. So from there, depending on what the furniture is and what we've been asked to do, it could be 3 months sometimes.
Okay.
Then you've got the quick ones that maybe don't take so long, but usually I think we're talking about 3 to 4 months, 6 months, depending, maybe a year sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah, a rug, if you do a bespoke rug, it takes time to get it made, handmade.
Right.
So then we're talking about 3-4 months for just that one piece.
Wow.
So this is why what I like to do is, get our concepts right, and then start, when we're researching what pieces we want to use. It kind of sets the tone for the rest and how long it will take. once that's been confirmed and the project has been confirmed, then we place all the orders. And then we're methodic. That's where there is like no playing. That is really hardcore, super organized.
And you deliver on time mostly? I know.
Unless there's something that has happened with maybe in refurbishments many times, there's delays.
Yeah.
So, but also there's a piece that's going to take longer. It's just about having a conversation with the client and saying,
that's coming later.
This has happened.
Yeah.
And it happens. But usually it's. We set out the time frames and then we're really mindset that we have to get it done. I like that because I think you can have the creative side, but then the logistical side has to be good.
Right.
You know, and we're learning all the time how to like work on our process, how to make it better, more efficient for us.
Of course.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then finally we can deliver something completed, beds made, everything, and I love that part. Yeah.
And get paid.
And get paid.
Also very fun.
Yeah, funny.
What are the most common mistakes you think that homeowners make when decorating their spaces? I mean, you know, some people can be very fixed in what they think they like. Someone like yourself come in with a, you know, 180 degrees the difference. You know, what are the mistakes you think that people make that you can correct for them, and you actually mostly convince them that you're right?
Okay, so I think many times when I get briefings, sometimes I get images from all sorts, like different styles, which I like that.
Yes.
So I think it's about, you know, asking, what do you like about that photo or about that interior? Because many times you think you like one particular thing and actually what you like is just the mood.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's really about, I think a common mistake would be to kind of start without a proper plan. Unless you really like a piece and you want to get it, that's fine. But sometimes if you're doing a whole home, it's really important to just wait a bit. Just don't be impatient. I think a common mistake can maybe be impatience because you want to get it done and see it finished. Taking the time to really get a good foundation for your design. I think this is something that you should wait on.
Sure.
And then, you know, you can think about it. That's why I was saying about slow design. It's not about taking forever, but it's just about giving it the right time and attention to then get the concept right, getting the pieces right, and try instead of rushing it.
Yeah.
Many times, if a piece is going to take longer, I'm like, it's going to take longer, but I think if you wait, it'll make a difference.
Right.
Then the client has a choice. Do you either go for something you can get faster or get something that you wait a bit longer, but then it's really what you want. And then another common mistake, perhaps, or just, I would say, don't compromise on something that you really love. You know, wait for it. Better to, you know, just wait for it and have the patience to, because otherwise then you're getting lots of pieces that in the end you're like, I should have waited.
Right.
And it happens to me even in my private home. You know, sometimes, you know, I'm an artist for what I do every day. When it comes to my affairs, I'm like, oh, I should have waited. So take the time. Yeah, don't rush it.
In my work experience, we've talked about, you know, hey guys, we're going to design a horse, and everybody gets ideas, and you end up with a camel, you know, and it's not quite the horse, you know, that you want to do.
But I mean, getting the camel is right, because I think sometimes you can get the creative process has a way that you think you're going to go one way, but then you end up in a different place, but that actually took you somewhere that you didn't expect, and that is really cool. This is why I think the process. I don't like to box it in. I like to leave it open and free so that we can create something interesting.
Good. Boring stuff. Budgeting. High-end projects. How do you do that? I mean, how do you, because, you know, you talked about different prices, some a big piece, a little piece, it changes. How do you do that?
I love it when I ask, what's the budget? They're like, we don't know. It's not easy. I think because we've been doing it for so long, there's certain sort of bulk numbers that we can do. But then also I feel that within the creative phase, there are pieces that if you want something special, you will have to invest in. I think anyway, it is an investment. This is where we like to go as sort of a boutique studio.
Yeah.
Not to just try to get the best price. It's not about that. It's really about, you know, curating the pieces and making them come together like a piece of art. So this is the direction of my studio.
Yeah.
So budgeting isn't always easy, but if you have the numbers at the beginning, we can always say, okay, that is a good starting point. And I think that if we invest here and here and here in your priorities, that's good. But for this, you can't expect this for that. I mean, it's just having that conversation.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I'm selling houses as well, I get the same thing because people, you know, you go into a place, say, please sell my house, and it's been personalized to such an extent that I say, and it's not, you know, decoration, it is structural personalization. Then it's very difficult to try and get that one person who wants the 8 bedrooms with the you know, extra bedroom, all that stuff. You know, it's quite difficult. But anyway, I see we share an issue with budgeting and people.
So I think that it's important that you know where you want to spend your investment.
Yeah.
And as an artist, it has to also resonate with me.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's difficult to. This is my life. This is my passion. I'm really passionate about it. So it's also important that the client will understand that. And having a designer that you jive with, I think, is super important as a client.
Yeah.
So it's just about seeing if we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And then.
Is there a number that I could tell my clients when they buy a house and they want to decorate it? I say, you bought a house for $1 million, it'll cost you 10% of the value of the house to do a nice job. So 100,000 for €1 million house. A $2 million house, 200,000. Is that more or less, or is that just?
It depends on the house.
Doesn't it?
Because it depends on the size of the rooms and also how, like you can buy a house for 100,000 with 5 bedrooms, and you can buy a house for $1 million, you know, and then buy a house for the same price and it has 2 bedrooms. So
it's 2 beds instead of 5 beds.
Yeah, and then how do you split the funds?
Okay,
So I guess, and then what do you want to get for it? That's why I don't think it's so straightforward. I know that's usually what people say, and it could be. It really depends on the home, what the client wants.
Okay. Anecdotally, I'm sure you got many of these. Some people think with the head. Usually it's the person who's bringing the money to the party, and other people think with the heart, and usually the person who is deciding things.
Yes.
Is that a conflict you come across a lot? Don't mention names.
No. More than a conflict, I just think it's part of the process as well.
Yeah.
You know, and how
the dynamics.
Really, I think it's a dynamic of you know, there has to be a give and take on both sides.
Yeah.
So if the compromise is something that you can live with and you're happy with it,
then all good.
Compromise, that's fine. But then put your foot down if you're the one with the heart. I really want that.
All right, good. All right, let's move on. Lightning, the lights, how does that work? I mean, because I think that's such a huge part of it all, and it's one that everybody forgets. I mean, I show houses all day long, never all night long. And, you know, people are making decisions about a big property will have no idea how the lights work. And it's very few times that someone wants to come back and say, I'm coming at 8 o'clock tonight when it's dark and I want to see how the lights work.
Oh, wow.
Do you, is that a big thing for you?
I'm not a lighting designer, but I love lighting.
But
and
you must.
Yeah. So I think indirect lighting is important. Making sure if there's volumes that you know how to light them up, so it's a feature in your home.
Right.
And also the way that it makes you feel. The temperature of the light, you know, is important. Do you want a cold light? I personally don't like. I love more warm lights to make it more inviting. And then lighting itself can be really artful. The light itself. It's combining the elements. So you've got artistic light, mood lighting, and then also lighting so that you can functional lighting so that you can see.
Don't fall over.
So that during the day when you've got some lights on, maybe it's not so noticeable, but then when the sun starts setting and you start seeing the lighting, it's really nice when you have things come to life because of the light that it has, you know. So we like to work on that. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a lighting designer, but we can work with them as well. Okay. You know, on projects.
All right. Well, we've been here for quite a while. Just one more. What would be the best advice you can give anyone coming in? You know, when they're coming in and say, look, we bought this house, or we're thinking of buying this house, can you come have a look? What's the first sort of advice you would say? I'm sure it's a bit of everything you've got in, you've told me already. Yeah. But, you know, as a, you know, you're creating a luxury space, You know, it's you know, focus on something first, and then that's spend your money there, as opposed to having, you know, a Picasso on the wall, because, you know, that's just a little bit. It's everything
It's
else.
a whole budget.
Yes.
I think follow your heart,
Okay.
because if it's a home for you to live in, you want to feel really well where you live. That's where I come in as an intuitive. I feel I'm an intuitive designer,
Yeah.
more than a structured. You know, I go with the flow,
Yeah.
and I look at the people, at my clients, or, you know, even what they're touching, what they're looking at. It's little things. I don't even know what I'm perceiving, but
Yeah.
when they've left and when I'm thinking about them, oh, I'm sure they would like that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like something that comes automatically.
Yeah.
So I think if the client is coming, depending on the brief as well, if it's
Yeah.
a client for them, if it's a property that they want to sell, if it's a property for themselves, I would say just go with what you feel in your heart, you know, because at least for me, that's the way I create. I put a lot of love into every space, and I would like to see that also with the clients. I think it's how they feel the joy,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So do that, but also with a bit of not just follow your heart, you know,
Yeah.
and fall in love with the wrong.
I know.
with the wrong
I'll be a
thing.
terrible client for you, because I don't know what I want. I don't know what I think is great until I see it. So, you know, and want to see the end product, rather than, you know, if I give you a blank space and I
Yeah.
said, make this a beautiful place for me.
Okay.
And I'd say, yeah, I need a bed to sleep in. You know, I need a kitchen that needs that. I need the light that comes down, all the
Yeah.
functional stuff. But, you know, I wouldn't know how to explain it to you. But that's me. I mean,
But that's cool, because even though you don't maybe know how to explain it, just by conversations, again, this is where it's about observing. It's not just about what you hear, it's about observing the person,
Right.
and talk a little bit about what you like,
Okay.
understanding who the person is. Maybe sometimes I don't get to see my clients a lot because they're not living here.
Of course.
Sometimes it's a lot by email or by a few calls, and then just based on little things and how their face can light up if they see something, if they talk about something, I'm like, oh, okay. And then that's what inspires me. You know,
Okay.
so if I'm designing for you and you don't really know, I'm like, okay, that's when I start asking more questions, just until I feel like I kind of know
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
I'm the channel, you know, where these
Okay.
things have
Yeah,
to come
yeah,
from.
yeah.
So
Very
it's just
good.
about understanding the person a little bit, so I
Okay.
can get inspired.
Cool. So there you are, guys. Heidi Gubbins. Anybody wanting to know more about what she does, please do contact her. Her name is Heidi Gubbins. She has her place here opposite the Marbella Club in Marbella. Do call her, do email her, do DM her. All the details are just below here.